People know. Maybe they remember when it is. Okay, hopefully they'll join. Okay, let's make a start. Okay, so hopefully today we're going to finish the sugya of tzedakah. We're going to complete the sugya of tzedakah. So we are halfway down, I think. Yud Omid base. That's the halfway down Yud Omid base, where it says Tanya. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines in the wide lines, not the widest, but the wide lines. Tanya the Brisa says, Rabbi Birnbaum said to his Talmidim, Bonai, my children, what does it mean when it says in the Pasuk, is a Pasuk in Mishlei, which is tzedakah elevates the nation, literally, the chesed le'umim, but kindness to the nations, in the plural, chatos is a sin. The question is, what does that pasuk mean? And basically, the Gemora for basically almost the rest of the Omid is going to go through different ways of understanding this pasuk, and where it's going to lead us to when we've completed it, and we look at the whole thing, it's going to lead us to this the question of, I think someone raised last time, about what is our perspective on the notion of charity given by non-Jews, not by Jews. That's really what we're going to. That's where we're going to get. That's where we're going to get to here. So this is what the Gemara says. So each one gave a different shot. Each one gave a different explanation in this passage. Rabbi Birnbaum answered and said, Tzedakah is uplifted by uplifts the nation. Elu Yisrael. This is Yisrael. These are Yisrael. In other words, that's what the nation. Who is the nation? Tzedakah Teremim Goy. That tzedakah uplifts the nation is the Jewish people. The Pasuk says, "Omika Amcha Yisrael Goyecha Ba'aretz." So it's like your people Israel, well, one nation in the land. So the word Goy he understands is referring to the Jewish people. The Chesed Le'umim Chatos, and kindness to the nations is a sin called tzedakah v'chesed she'umasav digichavim oisen chaytu lohen. Any tzedakah, any kindness that the nations of the idolatrous nations do is chaytu lohen. It is a sin for them. Why? Because they only do it in order to. It literally means to make themselves great, to make themselves to uplift themselves, to make themselves great. That's his explanation, and he brings a pasuk in support of this. As the pasuk says, they should bring pleasing things. It's a pasuk in Ezra to the God of the heavens and Mitzlayin Chaya Malka, and to daven for the life of the king, of V'nai and his sons. And therefore, in other words, the pasuk in Ezra is talking about a situation where they are, it's describing, I think, let's go to look it up actually. I think it's describing a situation where they're bringing tzedakah, and it says that they do it in order for, basically to, they should, pardon? Yeah, although here it's even really, well, it's even better than that in a way, right? What are they doing it for? What are they doing it for? They're doing it so that people they'll be davened for, no? You know what it says? So it seems to say, let's just find the pasuk. Yeah, that's right. So basically, yeah, that's right. They wanted to bring it, and it's basically spelt out. They were bringing it in order for that that they would daven for the king and his sons. They should be saved or whatever. The Gemara has an obvious question on this because is that such a bad thing? Is that to do that? Is that not great? Is that not proper tzedakah? Well, Tanya the Brisa says, the person says this coin just go to tzedakah in order that he says my children should live, right? If such a person, so I should merit the world to come, right? That's a complete tzaddik. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not wrong to say we're going to give a coin to tzedakah in order that it should be a zuchus. We do that all the time, right? It should be a zuchus for a certain thing. You're going to give a coin to tzedakah. So why is that so bad? No kashas was no problem. Kam Yisrael kam over kechovim. One is talking about Yisrael, and one is talking about noved kechovim. What's the difference? Have a look at Rashi. Rashi is 3/4 of the way down. He's a tzaddik gomer. He's a complete tzaddik on this matter because of this thought process. And where it's a criticism is Kam Yisrael v'Kam B'Kechovim. Yisrael died on Shemayim. Yisrael have their intention for heaven, for Shemayim. Bein Yichya, Bein Lo Yichya. Eina Mahar Acha Midas Hadin. He doesn't question the Midas Hadin, the question of the judgment of Hashem. Aval Akum, but an Akum, Eino Nosin El Almanos Kain. An Ovid Kechovim, an idolater, Eino Nosin El Almanos Kain. He only gives it on that condition. And if not, Mischaret. He actually regrets the whole giving of tzedakah in the first place. It is clear, of course, that there are questions one can ask on the generalizations here that the Gemara seems to be making in terms of the thought process that goes through from the perspective of Yisrael and the Kechovim. But let's, so to speak, reserve judgment till we get to the end, because we're going to see multiple different explanations, and we're going to get eventually to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's own pshat. Remember, he's posed the question to all his talmidim, right? And he's asked them all, right, what they think of this. So actually, it's actually worth. I should really send out copies of this. This is incredibly useful. So I've got a copy. This is you can see it on the screen there. This is the kind of the picture of the Tanoim and how they operate. You won't be able to see it from there. I have to send it out. We've got a WhatsApp group now, actually, so I can take a picture of it and send it out. I can even do that now, couldn't I? That'd be really clever. It's probably worth it, actually. Hold on a minute. Let me just do that. Are you all on the group, by the way?
No.
You are? David, you are?
Am I?
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
If anyone's not on the group, let me know and I can add them.
I've already set it up. Monday night shir is cool. David, you're on it.
Yeah.
Things have got bad, David. You don't actually know which groups you're on. So I'm just going to, this is really worth it, actually, for this Gemora. You'll see why. So I'm just going to take a picture of it. It's not going to, one second. Hold on. And you see, because this is basically the genealogy of the whole, all the Tanoim here. Let me just rotate it. Otherwise it's going to be upside down. Okay. There you go. You'll all get it now. Right. So if you take a look at this on the thing, you'll see. Oh, we love technology, don't we? When it works. What? You got it? You're not on it?
Yes.
You on it, David? No. What? Oh, you're not on it. Oh, right. Okay. Robbie, will you please add David to it?
Which David?
David Blue. You are on it, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, or someone forward it to you. Someone forward. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, basically, if you look at the picture, this is really helpful because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is Yerushalayim Yavna, right? So you're talking here. Look at the dates. Can you see the picture? Yeah. It's really, really helpful this because it tells you when you can place when the Tanoim and Amoraim. This is the Tanoim. There's another one for the Amoraim, right? You place the generations. You see how they live, when they live. You got Chorban on the right hand side of the paper. Can you see it's got Chorban by Sheni? Yeah, Chorban by Sheni. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai with the crown in the middle. Yeah, he lives the time of Chorban by Sheni, and of course he reestablishes the whole thing, right? All the everything comes from him, and he has got these Talmidim. You see Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shua, and we're going to see in the Gemara here how he asks each of them, how they think of explaining this passage. He's going to go down. We'll see. So it's worth keeping that here, and we'll see how they each answer. But to understand when they lived is also very important. These are all his talmidim. Anyway, so that was the first Dana Kafschus. Well, do we have a concept? Well, we do. We definitely do have a concept. Well, the question of how to apply that, I think,
according to Rashi, it's like you might regret it. So there's no.
Yeah. Well, the question is, what does that mean? Also, they're saying it's an assumption. It is an assumption. It is an assumption. You also have to bear in mind that it's also probably also a commentary on the experience they had with their neighbors. This is they're not. They're bringing. At the end of the day, there's also that part that aspect to it as well. This is what they were experiencing. Maybe. Let's carry on. We'll see how the Gemara develops this. Now, Rabbi Yeshua. So anyway, Rabbi Yeshua answered for Omar. So he responded to the question in a different way, and he said like this: when it says that tzedakah uplifts the nation, it's that's the same part. That means the Jewish people. The same pasuk. Who is like your people Israel? The goy echad, one nation, one nation. The chesed le'umim chatos. and kindness for the nations of the world is chatos, a sin called tzedakah v'chesed she'umas ovdei kechavim osin. Any tzedakah and kindness that umas ovdei kechavim do, chetzu lohen, it is a sin for them. Why? She'ein osin elo kadei she'timoshech malchuson. They're only doing it so that they should have lengthy days of kingdom. Shneimar, the Apostle says, Lehen malko malchi yishfar aloch. For you, the king, Daniel says to the king, whoever it was, probably, it was about to this one, okay? My advice should be good to you, but tzedakah broke, and you can redeem your sin with tzedakah. And then you've done wrong, and if you favor the poor, then you'll be saved. That will lead to lengthening of days of your kingdom. So it's a similar explanation. Rabbi Shua goes down a similar track to that of what was the first one? Rabbi Lezer, right? Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yeshua. You see, Rabbi Lezer ben Hyrcanus from Lod and Rabbi Yeshua ben Chanani from Peki'in, right? And they both give the same. A similar thing. It's done for self-interest. Nana Rabbi Gamliel answered for Omar, and he said, and you can see again, if you look again at that chart, you'll see that Rabbi Gamliel is that generation after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and he is also in Yavne, and he is the Nossi, I think, after Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's why there's a little crown there. That's why there's a little crown there. It gets very complicated with the Rabbi Gamliel through the Gemara, because you have, as you see in the chart, you can see you have Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Shimon, Gamliel, Rabbi Gamliel, which is very complicated to work out which one you're talking about. Anyway, now Rabbi Gamliel of Omat, Tzedakah Tzromein Goy, Tzedakah should uplift the nation, Eli Yisrael, these are the Jewish people. Dichsiv, as the Apostle says, Mika Amcha Yisrael v'goyim, v'chesed le'umim, chatos, and kindness for the nations is a sin, called Tzedakah v'chesed she'akam v'sin, any kindness and charity that the nations do, chetzu lahen, it's a sin for them. They only do it in order to, if you like, laud themselves with, or to arrogant and to express arrogance. Anyone at pride, really. Anyone who has pride, falls into Gehinnom. Shneimar, the person Zayd Yoher late Shemai. Zayd is someone who's willful in that way, like Mazid. Yoher has pride. Late Shemai, his name is a scoffer. Osa be'evros zodon. He acts with wrath. Willful wrath, ever Gehinnom, ever refers to Gehinnom. That day is a day of anger, so it refers to Gehinnom. Rashi says Yom Evra Yom Ahu, but Yom Adin Mishtoy b'Nevuah Tzefanya is talking about the day of judgment in the Nevuah of Tzefanya. So again, the same thing. It's also negative. It's saying they're doing it because it's an expression of just to express pride and look what I'm doing. I'm giving so much tzedakah, that type of thing. Omar Rabbi Gamliel said. So this is now the fourth one. Adayin on itzrichin lemoidoi. We still require the moidoi. He's also there, even though he appears not as a Talmud directly in the chart as Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Lezer HaMoidoi from Modi'in. And he says, hence Modoi, Rabbi Lezer Modoi says, Tzedakah Tzromein Goy. He says, we still need his opinion. Tzedakah Tzromein Goy, that tzedakah uplifts the nation, Eli Yisrael, this is Yisrael, they all say the same thing. That refers to the Jewish people. Because of those words, Goy Echad, the Jewish people are called the Goy Echad. So tzedakah uplifts the nation is the Jewish people. The Chesed L'Umim Chatos, kindness for the nations is a sin. Called tzedakah v'chesed she'akam osin, every tzedakah and kindness that the akam do, chetzu lohen, it's a sin for them. Why? She'ein osin elo lecharef osonu boy, because they only do it in order to scorn us with it, if you like. Shneimar, the pasuk says, "Vayovay vayas Hashem kasher diber." Hashem came and did as he said, as he spoke. Ki chatosam l'Hashem, because you sinned to Hashem. V'lo shamatem b'koloi, and you did not listen to his voice. And this why this appeared. This happened to you. This is why this happened to you. Now this is actually these words are being spoken. It's from Yirmiyahu. They're being spoken by Nebuzaradon. Nebuzaradon was known as the Rav Tabachim. He was the butcher in chief of the butchers of Nebuchadnezzar, and he wasn't slaughtering meat. He was known as the Rav. That's what he's called, the Rav Tabachim. He was the chief slaughterer for Nebuchadnezzar when he came to destroy the Beis Hamikdash. So Rashi says, Hamidoi, Rashi says, Nehar Hamidoi, Har Hamidoi, Vayovi Yas Hashem Kashem Beki, Chados Hashem Agav, and Vuzardan Kamalei Yirmiyah, and Vuzardan said this to Yirmiyah, Kashem Megales Yisrael Bovel, when he exiled the Jewish people to Bovel. So how do you see from here that they use it just to if you like criticize us with, because the pasuk is saying that Hashem did as he spoke. He's making fun of the Jewish people, and he's saying that this happened to you because you sinned. You sinned to Hashem. You didn't listen to his voice, and that's why this occurred to you. Now, what's that got to do with Stocker, right? What's it got to do with them doing? Them doing what's the Stocker that they've done here? Because we're explaining the pasuk and saying that the Stocker that the Goyim, the nations do, that itself they do in order to scorn us. What was the Stocker? So Tosfos fills in the gap here. The last Tosfos on the Amud. That time he did tzedakah. What was the tzedakah he did? Because he looked like he was, if you like, taking revenge on behalf of Hashem. He actually released Yirmiyahu from chains. So either it's expressed almost as a charitable act, or it appears to be charitable because he is fulfilling the word of Hashem. You have that complexity of the same thing with the Egyptians, the famous question, right? Why were the Egyptians criticized? At the end of the day, what are they doing? Right? The Egyptians are fulfilling the word of Hashem. In that sense, they're taking what they're doing, they're doing, well, we're fulfilling Hashem's word, we're destroying the base of English. It's what Hashem wants them to do. Yet they do it in order they make fun of us through that. So that's the fourth pshat. Now Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Now Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana answered. Where's Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana actually here? I don't know where it appears actually here. Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. I don't know if he's on the sheet. No, can't find him. Can't find Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona. There must be somewhere. Anyway. Okay, Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakona, he responded and he said the following thing. Shall uplift the nation, chesed liyisrael. Now he puts chesed also with the Yisrael as well. So he said he reads the pasuk tzedakah goy v'chesed liyisrael, right? And also kindness also goes to the Jewish people. But to the nations there's only chatos, there's only sin. Is only sin. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to his students, "Nirin divrei Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana midvarai and midivreichem." The words of Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana seem better than my words on your words. Why? If he should know tzedakah b'chesed Yisrael, because he attributes both tzedakah and chesed to Yisrael. La'akum chatos, but to the akum only sin. Now, what is the difference between tzedakah and chesed? We mentioned this briefly last time, right? So tzedakah we generally understand as meaning with financial means, right? Charity, yeah. Whereas chesed, of course, you perform in any way. You perform with your body, physically with your body as well, right? So he's saying that he's saying that he has the greatest level because he's attributing to the everything to the only the whole entire positivity. Both words refer to Yisrael, and the other word refers to the and there's only chatos. There's only chatos is akum is only chatos, as he said. Now the Gemora has two more lines. The implication is that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai also had a pshat here. He also had his own explanation. And what was that? What was that? The Sanya, because we have a brisa which says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said to them, just like the chatos, the sin offering atones for the Jewish people, kach tzedakah mechaperes ala masa'olam. So tzedakah atones for the nations of the world. So it's a very interesting Gemara, because you see what's happened here. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai has his own explanation of this pasuk, right? Which is a positive one for the rest of the world. You see that, right? It's saying, yeah, tzedakah teromim goy, v'chesed lo'omim chatos. And there's a parallel, which is that kindness provides a kapara for the rest of the world. But he's not happy seemingly with his own explanation, right? Because he seeks different explanations from all of his Talmidim. He has 5 different explanations, and he likes the best the one that attributes nothing at all to the rest of the world. It's a very interesting Gemara, a difficult Gemara as well, like to understand, if you like, hashkafically, if we can use that wonderful meaningless word. One explanation. Hashkafically, 2 languages. One explanation is positive. Yeah. Negative. Well, all of them are negative, except for the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's own one. That's right. They're all negative. How do you reconcile the two? Don't. you can't really. I mean, I don't think you can. I mean, there are different ways of understanding. There are different ways of explaining the pasuk. The question is as you probably think it.
Well, I think there are various other Gemaras that will side against Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai.
In what sense?
That sort of there's a Gemara, I think in Rosh Hashanah, that discusses about Daryavesh and about Tzedakah, and that they criticize him that he gave it specifically for the upkeep of the temple.
Right.
Beit Hamikdash.
Yeah.
Turns around and says same Gemara.
Oh, you only did it for yourself.
You only did it for yourself.
Yeah. That certainly appears with the Romans as well.
And then also with Gemara and
Yeah.
Zara, which
Yeah.
talks about the Romans and the
Yeah.
Persians, that all they did, we did it for the Jews, no,
Yeah.
we did it for yourselves.
Yeah, that's right. I think, yeah.
It appears that the reason why Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai prefers the interpretation of Chulin ben Akana is because it's better for Klal Yisrael. Because it's showing that the Goyim don't get the Torah measured and leave it wrong.
Yes, he wants. Yes.
Effectively.
Yeah. I'll just repeat for the benefit of everyone else. But basically, what Martin's saying is that he prefers it because it is specifically looking at Klal Yisrael in the best possible light. It's clear that people do things for all sorts of reasons and motivations, and there are all sorts of the same complexities will clearly apply to any tzedakah that's given in any way. You're right, he wants a pshat of the pasuk which looks upon the Klal Yisrael in a positive light. I think it's also fair to point out that there's a Meiri, there's famous Meiri in I think it's in Avodah Zarah and other places as well, where the Meiri talks about the distinction between paganism, right, which was not based on ethical morality. It wasn't an ethical moral vision, right? He contrasts that with at least in the ideals of the contemporary religions today, which are based on an ethical moral foundation, right? Well, was essentially based on the values of the Torah, at least partly originally, right? And that's why he makes this distinction between the many Gemoras, which many of you may have learned, like in Avodah Zarah, which are extremely negative about the Avodah Zarah. And he makes that distinction between, there's a separate question as to whether, for example, the idolatrous status of Christianity or whatever, but he makes a distinction between the debased nature of paganism, right? And that might also be relevant to this Gemora as well, perhaps. But it is complicated. Let's see, this is also something yeah. Okay, but now we're going to see in the Gemora an actual case of what to do. In other words, where you have a situation of giving tzedakah, and how do you relate to that when the tzedakah comes not from a Jewish source? Ifra Hormuz was Imei, the Shover Malka, was the mother of Shover Malka. Now, Shover Malka was basically a type of it was a Persian, whether it was a Persian king or something associated with Persia. Shapur, I think, is in English. And he was basically he's a Persian king. So his mother, the queen mother, effectively, Shadra Arba Mea Dinri to come into Rabbi Ami. So she sent 400 dinar, which presumably was quite a lot of money, in front of Rabbi Ami. V'lo kablinu. He didn't accept them. He refused to accept the money. Shadratinu kame de Rava. She sent them in front of Rava, kablinu, and he accepted them. Mishum Shalom Malchus. He accepted them because of Shalom Malchus. You're very concerned about Shalom Malchus. If you reject the gift of the Queen Mother, it's not going to be very good for the for the Jewish people. She accepted. The Shalom Malchus. It's political sensitivity. Shom Rabbi Ami Ikpid, and Rabbi Ami heard and Ikpid, and he was upset. He was particular about it. Omei said to him, Omei said, less lay. Does he not hold of Yivosh Katsiro Tishavarna when the boughs dry out? And when they end their their merits end, Tishavana, they'll be broken. Noshim boys, women come Meiros Osa and set it on fire. Set it on fire. The implication being that even those who are considered to be, how shall we put it, weaker than men, are able to set it on fire. Now the Rashi says, look at the last Rashi in the Amud. And what do we bring from this pasuk in Yeshaya? When the merit, the schus that's in their hands is finished, and it dries up the moisture or the stocker that they have, then they'll be broken. Then they'll be broken. Okay. So in other words, what's he saying? How can you? What here we see the problem. What is the problem with accepting this stocker? So what? Well, it's very nice. What's wrong with it? The answer is because you're giving extra merit. They're having extra merit, right? Follows on from what Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said. It provides atonement. It helps them. We're suffering under the Persians are saying, and you're caused by receiving this gift from them. You're causing them to get more zuchusim. They're going to have more merits, and they're going to last longer. Keep oppressing us. That's what he's upset about, right? So Rava, why did Rava do it? Mishum Shalom Malchus. So Rava accepted it only because of Shalom Malchus, because of, as we said, because it's the idea of keeping peace and understanding the situation, the situation that the Jewish people are in is very important, and he didn't want to stir the hornet's nest or whatever. Rabbi Ami Nami Mishum Shalom Malchus. So the Rabbi Ami should have also accepted it because of Shalom Malchus. Why was Rabbi Ami upset? So the Gemora says because his argument was, he was saying to Rava, you should have accepted it, then you should have distributed it to the poor of the Ovdei Kechovim, the poor of the idolatrous people. That's what you should have done. Rava in fact did that. He actually did distribute it to the paupers of the Ovdei Kechovim. Rabbi Ami de Ikbid, who de lo siyamo kamei. And you know why Rabbi Ami was upset? Rabbi Ami got upset because he didn't know and they didn't finish it. They hadn't completed the story with him. In other words, he wasn't aware that it had in fact been distributed to Aniyei of the Kechovim. Okay, so basically, this is the story. The mother of this Persian king gives a donation. Rabbi Ami says we can't accept that because that's going to give them more merits, and they're going to continue oppressing us. They can get more merits in Shammai. Rava says it's not a problem. I have a solution. I'll accept it. I'll give it to a non-Jewish cause. It's not a problem. And Rabbi Ami didn't know that he had done that. That's why he was upset with him. But really, everyone's arrived at the same point, right? That's what it seems. Yeah, they would all have been happy. Rabbi Ami also would have been happy with that in theory. Okay, that's what the Gemora says. Rashi here, though, deals with a problem that we mentioned when we learned Daf Ches. If you look at Rashi, it's Rashi top of the next onward. It wasn't clear to Rabbi Ami that Rava had distributed to the Aniyei of the Kechovim. So he didn't realize that Rava had done that. Says Rashi, that which we said above, the Shodranami Ifrahum is limits for Rabbah. So if you look at Ches Amud Aleph, you just turn back a second, the Ches Amud Aleph, at the bottom of the Amud, you'll see a very similar story. Ifra Hormiz, 3 lines from the end of the Amud, Ifra Hormiz, Imei the Shovel Malka, she was the mother of Shovel Malka, Shodra Arnaka the Dinri, the coming of Yosef, she sent an Arnaka the Dinri, what's an like a purse of money for Rav Yosef. Omra, she said, Lahavi la mitzvah rabbah, it should be for a mitzvah rabbah. And then the Gemora says there, Yosef Rav Yosef, a comma iron boy, remember this one? He's like, what should we do? What's called the mitzvah rabbah? And then Abai says, well, you see that stocker you can only kind of claim stocker from your Yisomim, from orphans, for redeeming captives, pigeon shvuyim. That must be a mitzvah rabbah. So that must be the mitzvah. That's a great mitzvah. We'll give it to pigeon shvuyim. It's a brilliant kasha. Here, we have 2 donations, right? Over there, he's accepting it and he's thinking, where's the best possible use I can put it to, the best mitzvah, right? Here, they're all not happy to accept it, and they're like, okay, we'll accept it, but we'll give it to Aniyei of the Kechovim. What's the difference, right? So the difference is, Shodnam Yefrahom is the mitzvah rabbah, says Rashi, Mishum Shalom Malchus, Nami Kamlinu. He also only accepted it there because of Shalom Malchus, so there should be no, it shouldn't upset the rulers. But he couldn't distribute it to paupers of the Ovdei Kechovim. Why? Because you're not allowed to trick anyone. Doesn't matter who they are. Even if it was someone who was an Ovdei Kechovim, an idolater, he wasn't allowed. Since she said, I want this to go to a mitzvah rabbah, a great mitzvah, it had to go to a mitzvah rabbah. And there was no way around it. Right? But when it comes to money which is distributed, is meant to be distributed to poor people, which is what was going on in our Gemora, in Genevas das, that's not Genevas das, that's not tricking the person. Because they're well aware that Jews give to charitable causes, both Jewish and non-Jewish, and that's brought down in halacha. As we say in Maseches Gittin, you support the paupers of idolaters with the paupers of Yisrael. Why? Because of ways of peace. Maybe we'll come back to that because there's a very interesting question about what that means. But what we see is like this: is that it's a very, very, very fascinating rush here because we're going down a very sort of, sort of in a way negative track almost when it comes to perspective vis-a-vis the nations of the world, right? At the end of the day, though, it's trumped by Geneva Stas. Geneva Stas is so strong, to trick someone and to fool someone that, when you've given a commitment to them, doesn't matter who they are, that's completely osa, right? It's completely forbidden. And therefore that's why they had to give it to a mitzvah rabbah. They had to give it to a great mitzvah. Yeah.
So the definition of giving tzedakah is not mitzvah rabbah? We don't just say tzedakah is like one of the big mitzvahs you can give.
It is. But when she specifically asked for it to be given to a great mitzvah, he was defining that as almost like the greatest level, the highest level of pigeon shvur. It's not that tzedakah is not a mitzvah rabbah, but the conclusion of the Gemara there was, he brought the Gemara there, brought psukim to prove that it is considered to be a mitzvah rabbah. It's not that tzedakah isn't, right? It's just that was treated as almost like the highest level in that way to a pigeon shvur, to redeem captives. So anyway, so here we, any other questions on this? I have something else I wanted to tell you about it, but is any?
Yeah, so at risk of repeating my words, there's no mitzvah to time limit
What?
of tzedakah to complete cover.
No, well, Aaron was talking more about why was it when she said, I want to give it for a mitzvah rabbah, why didn't it qualify just to give tzedakah? Why did it have to go to redeem captives, right? So that, the Gemara learns from Apostle why that's the highest level, fine. You're asking whether there is a mitzvah.
Based on this, whether or not there is a classification of a mitzvah, give tzedakah to non-Jewish. So
that's a very interesting question. In other words, what does it mean, the Gemora in Gittin? The Gemora in Gittin, which Rashi brings here, is there one here? The problem with this is there's not a whole chassid. And in fact there are some doubles, but not. We'll have to fix that. Is there one there?
The shas to your right should be a whole one.
The
shas to your left should be a whole set. No.
Where? Down there. I think here's this.
No,
blue one on the other side of the Aron Kodesh.
Oh, on the other side. Oh, perfect.
Sorry.
Well, I'll around everything through this. Sorry, I was looking at the swords. Thank you very much. So the question is, when it says "Mefanas Nochem Yisrael Makavrim," so the Gemara says in Gittin Samachala from Dalaf Tonar Mefanas Nochem Yisrael, you support non-Jewish causes, the Jewish Mavakrin Choli Nochem Choli Yisrael, Bikul Cholim as well, the same thing, right? Together, the Kovrin Meisei Nochem Meisei Yisrael also to bury as well, right? So both together. You do both. Why? Because Darchei Shalom. And the question of how to understand that really revolves as to how to understand the Rambam. The Rambam is no. Sorry, no. It doesn't mean to bury with. Rashi specifically says that Lo b'kivrei Yisrael el misaskin bohem im mitzoom harugim im Yisrael. Let's say you go to a battlefield and you find Jewish soldiers and non-Jewish soldiers. It's happened in Israel, unfortunately. It's the Jewish soldiers, they treat them the same, right? They don't bury them in the same cemetery, but they're treated with the same cover, dignity, respect. Exactly, right? Yeah. Now the question is, the Rambam. We have to find the Rambam 1 second. So this Rambam, I think I'm not mistaken, Zion. There's a Rambam here. Isn't it? We'll organize this one eventually.
Left.
Further along.
Further along.
This way.
Warmer.
Yes.
Colder. Right, gone past it. I think it's under the arts one, I think. On my eyesight, it's not good.
Dimensions
Oh.
out.
Yeah.
So you look at what's up.
Yeah. But finally, I'll be clever.
Okay, so not a synonym. Okay, we'll get there with the slime eventually here. I think right, so Perek Zayin Halacha Zayin. So the Rambam brings this halacha down. Maybe it's bring it there. Very good. Okay. About the Malachim. A second. So it is worth finding this. I think. It might be. Sorry, it might be helpful to look very good. No, very good. Yeah, here it is. Sorry, apologies for the delay. That's right. So Rashi, so the Rambam says he's talking here about the same thing, the relationship between with how Yisrael are supposed to treat a goyim. Right. He's talking about Ger Toshav and whether it's different, how it's different. And fine. But Afilu HaGoyim, he says, even the nations of the world, the Chachamim commanded to visit the sick, their sick, to bury their dead in Mesa Yisrael with the deceased of the Jewish people, as we said, not with them, but right. To also support the poor together with Ani Yisrael, mipnei darchei shalom, right, because of the ways of peace. Right now, the Rambam should stop there. In other words, if darchei shalom is like a b'diavad, usually a darchei shalom, we have to, keep the peace. Otherwise it looks like we're only doing it for children. The Rambam would stop there, but the Rambam doesn't. Harei nema, says the Rambam. Surely it says, Tov Hashem l'kol v'racham al kol ma'asim. Hashem is good to all and has mercy on his creations. V'ne'emar, and it says, Doracher darchei noya mechol nesiv v'ser shalom. Its ways of pleasantness and all its paths of peace. And the Rambam, this is part of a much bigger shir, but just this is like the end of the shir, you know what I mean? But basically, the Rambam, those two lines are very clear indication. It's not a b'diavad. It's l'chatchila. It's how the Torah wants us to behave. Tov Hashem l'kol, rachma al kol ma'asim. Right? Not to only look out only for our own in that way. So it's not. So that's how the Rambam is phrasing it. It's not a contradiction, by the way. It can be both. Darchei shalom can be still understood. The simple pshat in Darchei Shalom still remains. It would create tremendous animosity if we behaved in that way, right? So yeah, but then the Rambam has those psukim. This is also the way you're meant to behave, right? So that's very important. That I think is an answer to your question, Martin. Sorry it took so long to get there, but it's an important point. Yeah.
Does he mean therefore it's part of the mitzvah of Torah Shem, or does he mean therefore that even by the mitzvah of Torah would include?
Okay, so that's a different question. Whether it's strictly speaking a kiyum of the mitzvah of tzedakah is a different question. But either way, it would seem that it's the right thing to do. It's a mitzvah of some sort in that way. It's not like that's right. That's the essential point I think you see from the Rambam. The Maharsha here says something here which is important, I think. Just 1 second. Maharsha says, no, it's not the Maharsha. I wanted to show you the halacha actually, because the question is, how does this actually brought down in halacha? So what have we seen? We've seen this idea that he could accept it, right? He could accept it only because of Shalom Malchus, and if there was no specific, unless it was specified to be given to a particular cause, right, mitzvah rabbah, then the right thing to do was l'chalkon laniyakum. That's what we saw to the non-Jewish causes. Why? Because of the concern of adding suchusim. Yeah, that's what he was worried about, right? To the Persians, right? Now in halacha, Siburation and Daled is talking about the halacha shelo lekabel tzedakah me'acherim. There's two sifim in Siburation and Daled. Says the Shulchan Aruch, also Yisrael told tzedakah me'ovid kechovim b'far hesia. Yisrael is not allowed to take tzedakah from an ovid kechovim b'far hesia in public. V'meinu yochel lechiris b'tzedakah shel Yisrael. But if he can't sustain himself with the tzedakah of Yisrael, v'einu yochel litla me'ovid kechovim b'tzina, and he can't accept it in private, harei ze mutar, then it is allowed. That's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Then it's mutar. And it's based on other Gemara as well, not only our Gemara. The next one, though, is our Gemara, Sif Beis. Sar Ovid Kechovim, a prince or whatever, or a leader of Kechovim, Sheshalach Momon Yisrael, who sends money to the Yisrael, Litzedakah. Ein machzirin oso, you don't send it back, Shalom Malchus, right? Because of Shalom Malchus. You take it, Vinosin on Yevd Kechovim, but say Sekadeshne Shama Hasar. You give it to an Yevd Kechovim, right, in private, so that he shouldn't hear. That's interesting. In the Shulchan Aruch, they could open the Shulchan Aruch and see, but that's the Shulchan Aruch paskins. That's what you should do. Says the Ramah Agav, Yesh Omrim. Some say Diasabohen Mashet Sivalo Hamosha, that you should do whatever he told you to do with the money. Okay, this is what they've given a gift to the Jewish community, right? And that he says is the mashma from Pirush Rashi and Tosfos, because there's a Tosfos on this earlier as well. From this story of Imei Shava Malka, that's the source for the Ramah, right? That you do what has been told. This Rashi is the source for the Ramah. Again, you see that path from directly from Rashi into the halacha. The Ramah says that you fulfill what the command was, what the instruction was. The Chol Zedavka says the Ramah, that is only when they give money for tzedakah. If they give a gift to a shul, mekablim mehem, you're allowed to accept it. You can accept it. And that's brought elsewhere, I think, from another makar. Interestingly enough, what's the difference? So the Taz says the difference is because if they give a gift to a shul, anyone suggest what the difference is? Why with tzedakah are we saying, we accept it, but give it preferably to an Yevd Kechovim, unless they specify what's the difference with the shul? No, but they didn't specify. They just give the gift to the shul. Why is it then you makabel, you accept it for that purpose?
Because they're not directly going to the aniyim. There's a middleman.
But think more about what a shul is and what it represents. Mokum tefillah, and therefore and
it's part of the tefillah values, right?
No, but more we're talking about the non. And what happened in the Beis Hamikdash? They could bring korbanos, right? So it's a beautiful thing, right? You understand? It's a continuation directly of what would happen in the Beis Hamikdash. If a non-Jew knocks on the door of the Beis Hamikdash, I'd like to bring a korban. Doesn't hey, absolutely, we accept it. Says the Taz, do welcome korban. But arshinon ishish l'rabbis of the kechovim shenojin adayim adavos Yisrael. They can give free will gifts to the Beis Hamikdash. Same thing to a shul. Very fascinating, interesting, right? It means that God Sashri. Okay, then. Okay, that's how it is. Now, he also brings another thing here as well, that those korbanos, free gifts of korbanos and dorim and adovos are not actually coming for a kapara, for an atonement. And then the Ramah says, avalo min hamumah, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. Someone who is classified in halacha as a mumah, as an apostate, can't accept from him even for a shul. But that is a different story as to what exactly that's referring to. Who is classified as a mumah.
You accept a gift from a non-Jew as a sort of to assuage his guilt. So I'm thinking, the Nazi reparations.
That's very, 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 very interesting question. Jeremy's asking about Nazi reparations and things. Can you accept money from that in that context or whatever? It's a big question. It's a big subject. It's a big subject, and also there are a number of instances and circumstances where people have been uncomfortable accepting gifts in a certain context. It's not a simple thing at all. I've given you just literally the tip of the iceberg that's relevant directly to this Gemara, but yeah, it's a very important question. Okay, I want to make sure we get to the Mishnah today because I want to finish the sugya today. So we will press on if that's okay with everyone. Tanya, the Brisa says, Omru alov al Binyamin al-Tzaddik. They said about Binyamin al-Tzaddik, showing Mamuna al-Kupa shel tzedakah. It doesn't say who Binyamin al-Tzaddik was, and I think it's Binyamin al-Tzaddik, as in Binyamin, the son of Yaakov. I don't see, yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe not. Maybe unless it was someone else called Binyamin al-Tzaddik. So anyway, he was appointed over the Kupa shel tzedakah, over the tzedakah funds. Once a woman came in front of him, in the year of famine. Omrano, she said to him, Rebbe, my teacher, Rebbe Parnasani, support me. Omrano said to her, Havoda, by the service, make like an oath, a shvua, by the service of the Beis Hamikdash, there is nothing there. I'm sorry, there is nothing for you. There's nothing here. Omrano said to him, Rebbe, my teacher, Ein Ato no Marfarnasani, if you don't support me, Hari Isha v'Shiva Bonel Mesid, a woman and her 7 sons are going to die. He said, that's it. We mentioned this last time, the levels of poverty. If you don't give me food, she said, that's it. There's nothing, right? Finished. Omad Uparnasom Shaloi. He got up and he supported her from his own pocket. Liyomim, it happened in a certain number of time. Soon after, Chola, he became ill, but not to Lamus, and it looked like he was going to die. The Malachim said to him in front of Hashem, Rabbeinu Shalom, Ata Omras, you said, Kolam Akayim Nefesh Achas Yisrael, one of the most famous Gemaras that exists. Anyone who keeps alive one soul of the Jewish people, it's as if he kept the whole world alive, right? This is how it is. But Binyamin al-Tzaddik kept alive a woman who has 7 sons. He should die. In such few years as this, a lot of these few years, they ripped up his Gazar Din, and he survived and he stayed alive for and he was kept alive. Time of the Brisa, the Gemora Brisa says, they added on Min Hashamayim 22 years on his years. So that's how long he lived. Now Rashi here explains the source for this very, very famous Gemara, which is also Gemara in Sanhedrin. This Kolam Akayim Nefesh Achas Yisrael Kilu Kayim Olam Mole. Everyone thinks of that last scene in so that last scene in Schindler's List, they give them the ring with this line on about the anyone who keeps one soul as if they kept the entire world. So, and Rashi explains to us here what the source of this is. We learn from your Torah. Why was a person created alone? To tell you, anyone who keeps alive one soul of these Jewish people can kept the whole world alive. Kasiv and the Pasuk says, in other words, the idea being that man is created as a singular being originally, because to show you that each person is the whole world. And the Apostle says, Kol Dmei Achicha, the voice of the blood of your brother. And why is it in the plural? When Cain kills Hevel, right? And it says the voice, the sound of the bloods of your brother. Why bloods? Because it's Dom over Dam Zuriyosov. It's his blood and the blood of his descendants. So too, when you keep alive the blood of your brother with you, it's considered to be his life and the life of his children as well. You've kept them all alive. Because we have a general principle, which is that the good measure is always more than the bad. So in other words, if already we see that by killing Hevel, it was as if he killed not the whole world, but it was half the world almost, all his descendants. So too, if you keep a person alive, you're not just keeping alive them, but it's all their children and their descendants and everyone who comes after them as well, right? That's the power of it. Very beautiful Gemara. So Tona Rabbanan, the Brisa says, Ma'aseh b'Munbaz HaMelech. There was a story of Munbaz, the king. Now Munbaz was, Rashi tells us, was the Benosh of Heleni HaMalka. He was the son of Heleni HaMalka, Mizera HaChashmonaim. He was one of the Hasmonean kings. So he was part of the Hasmonean dynasty, the Chashmonaim. Ma'aseh Munbaz HaMelech, Shebizbeis Oitzrosov, Oitzros Avosov B'Shnei B'Tzeres. He wasted literally the storehouses and of near a family. He wasn't wasting. He spent it all basically. He spent all the treasure, his own treasure house, and the treasure houses of his ancestors. So in years of famine, right? So it was a year of famine, and instead of keeping all the savings, he spent it all. His brothers and his father's household, they gathered up against him, and they said to him, your ancestors stored up and they added on to everything their ancestors had gathered. They spent all their time. They were so careful to save everything, to save all the money they had. Va'ato mevazbazom, and you're just spending it all like that. He had an incredible response to them. He says back to them, my ancestors, where did they store? Right? Geniza is like, it's Geniza is the way you put things in Shemus. It's called a Geniza, right? Because you're storing, hiding away, right? They hid it away. What for? Down here in this world. I'm storing up Zechusim in Shemayim, in heaven. Shnema, the Apostle says, Emes mi eretz titzmach, truth sprouts from the land, but Tzedek mi Shemayim nishkaf. And tzedakah, it gazes down from Shemayim. Rashi explains what this posture means. So when truth sprouts up from the ground, then from Shemayim, tzedek comes down, so to speak, to pay a reward. Rashi says nishkav is mabit, to gaze, with sister's mother. When she looks down and she wails, that end of the Shiras Devorah, right? When she wails, nishkav v'tiyabev, Devorah sees sister's mother. She expresses it through the song. She sees him wailing. She sees her wailing or whatever, but she realizes that in fact her son is not coming home with all of the spoils, but has actually been killed. And the word nishkaf means to gaze. It's the merit of the tzedakah is gazing down to earth from Shemayim. So this is the proof that when you do the right thing down here, there is an influence. The zechus of the tzedakah in Shemayim has an influence down here. So he says, that's what I've done. I've caused influence in heaven. My ancestors have also, they've stored something, they've stored all the money up in a place which is insecure. Yad sheletis boy means other people can control it. However safe you think it is, it's under the control of others. Something can happen, whatever. But me, I've stored in a place, because by giving the money to aniyim, to poor people, I have stored that money. It's a beautiful idea, in a place where it is the securest vault in the world, because no one can ever touch those funds. They've been used for the right purpose. That's it. They're in the best bank in the world. The Apostle says, the tzedek and justice, tzedakah and justice, is the mechon kisecha. It is the foundation of your throne, right? Say that Tim and Rosh Hashanah, no? Isn't that Lamnat Sechel Ivnei Korach? It's in that, no? It's in that Mizmah, right? Yeah. There you are. My ancestors stored up something which does not can't create any results, any fruit, anything from it. And I create something, I've hidden away something which creates fruit, which has results. The Apostle says, Imru tzaddik kitov, say the tzaddik who is good, ki prima leleim yochelu, for they consume the fruit of their labors, of their efforts. In other words, the tzedakah that they do has a constant, those chusim have a constant effect. And he carries on, my ancestors, my father stored up treasure houses of money. I'm storing up souls. There's a difference between counting money and there's a difference between counting souls, people. Shnema, the Apostle says, Pri tzadik eitz Chaim, the fruit of the righteous is the tree of life. Someone who takes souls, someone who counts people, someone who brings people in, that is someone who is wise. So again, it's just such a beautiful response that he's giving here. And he's saying, I'm not looking at what you're looking at, the fact that I'm wasting all the money, so to speak. I'm not doing that. I'm bringing in the people. That's what I'm doing. My ancestors stored up for others, but I'm storing up for myself. Ultimately, it's going to give me this chosim. The Apostle says, for you shall be tzedakah. The righteous tzedakah, the reward will come to you. My ancestors stored up for this world, and I'm storing up for the world to come. The Apostle says, your righteousness shall go in front of you. The honor of Hashem will gather you in. So the idea being that the tzedakah that a person does literally walks in front of him, so to speak, right? It's like an entourage to the person. Have a look at Rashi. There's a few more Rashis there. They're stored up underneath the throne of Hashem's throne itself. Rashi says, the principle is there for the Olam Haba, for the fruit, the result he eats in his life. The Pasuk says, they consume the work of their hands, of the fruit of their labor. So the result is the principle, the Karen is in the world to come, like we say in davening in the morning, right? But the result is still in this. There's results here as well. Storehouses of soul. It says those who take nefashos of soul is wise. In that posuk. One who takes souls is someone who is wise. I don't know whether I ever saw this in a pshat or not, but I've always taken those words as a profound, as an incredibly meaningful. Maybe I've seen it somewhere I don't recall on that pshat in that posuk in Mishlei, that really the approach to any form of communal work or communal leadership are those three words. Don't look at the crowds, at the numbers, at the mass picture. The people who approach people as individuals. If you take people as souls, that's wise. That's chacham, right? That's the wise approach. That's the wise approach to anyone involved in generally working in any form of communal work, communal leadership. You get lost sometimes. As about the wood from the trees, almost like you only see the wood, you don't see the tree sometimes, the individual people. That's the challenge, but that's the reward to do that. Finally, last few lines, just finishing off on the Mishnah said. The end of the Mishnah said, so the Mishnah was saying all the things, the responsibilities, paying for the gate. Remember that we did it a while ago, the gate for the city and everything else, the bolt and everything else. If you buy a house in the city, a beis dira, then you're like the anshe or the people in the city, and you're responsible jointly together with them to contribute to those costs. The Gemora says the mission is not like Rosh Gamliel. The sign of the Brisa says Rosh Gamliel the Brisa says, karka kolshu. If you acquire a little bit of land, any small patch of land, you're like the people in the city. You don't need to buy a house. As long as you buy a patch of land, that's enough to make you liable. Tanya says the Brisa So there's another Brisa which says, Shmuel says, if you buy a plot of land which is sufficient to build a house on, then you are like the people in it. Then you are treated like a citizen in terms of being responsible to contribute to all these things. And the Gemara says, there are two different tanoim according to as to what Rosh Gamliel held. One opinion held that Rosh Gamliel said, if you buy a plot of land, however small it is, you're already liable to contribute all the things that are needed for the purposes of the city. And the other one says, no, it has to be a plot of land that is big enough to build a house on, and then you're liable to contribute to all of the things that a city requires and needs. And we will leave it there. And next time we'll start the next sugya, start the Mishnah, go back to Chalukah Sechotzer, and there are different things and how you divide up and shutfin and partners and how they relate to each other. Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Okay. Have a good evening. Okay.